Hope everybody's doing well in these troubled times. I thank the organizers for arranging this meeting in such an interesting format. I also look forward to hearing other people's talks at this conference. Let me first give a brief introduction about myself. So I'm Jay Vadekar. I'm a fifth year PhD student at New York University. And I'm going to talk about some work done with Professor Roman Scocimaro, where we calculate an analytic version of the covariance, which I'll describe. And I'll also talk about the validation of our method, which is shown in the second paper below, which will publish at the end of the month. So let me get right into my talk. First, let me motivate the galaxy power spectrum covariance. And why is this useful? So let me give a basic overview. You have spectroscopic surveys of galaxies where you observe the positions of galaxies on the sky and their redshift. And to get constraints on cosmological parameters, the most important summary statistic that you can calculate is the power spectrum. So you measure the black dots from the survey, and the covariance is basically the error bar on these black dots. And to get constraints on these cosmological parameters, you fit these black dots with your theory power spectrum, which is a function of these cosmological parameters. And based on how well this function fits, you have constraints on the parameters. I've shown the power spectrum likelihood below, and this is where the covariance matrix enters, which is shown in red. So let me then go into how these covariance matrix has traditionally been calculated for spectroscopic surveys. So we have been using mock catalogs for calculating the covariance. And in this technique, you have to simulate thousands of mock surveys. And what you do is basically you first simulate thousands of dark matter boxes. And these are extremely huge dark matter boxes of the volumes of gigaparsec cubes. And then for each of these box, you have the dark matter field. You use a technique to paint halos on it. And then you paint galaxies onto these halos. And you cut the galaxy sample with the same geometry as your survey geometry. So you get these panels. And then for each of these uh, catalogs, you calculate the 2-point function, the power spectrum. And then when you combine the power spectra from all these thousands of mocks, you get the error bars, which are shown in red on your power spectrum measured from your data. And then you can fit your theory prediction and get error bars on the cosmological parameters. So what are the drawbacks in these technique of using mock catalogs, and why do you need an analytic technique in the first place? So as the survey volume increases, the mock catalogs become tougher to simulate, and the future surveys are going to probe higher redshifts and explore larger volumes. And so we have to simulate bigger dark matter boxes. And the second point is that the dependence of the covariance matrix on cosmology and bias parameters is computationally prohibitive to calculate. So I've shown again the power spectrum likelihood. So you start the process of simulating your mock catalogs before you have the entire data from your survey. And so these mock catalogs are simulated for a fiducial value of the cosmology and bias parameters. So in this expression, you can assume that you have a value theta naught. And then once you have the true values, the theta true for your cosmological parameters, you cannot go back and redo all the process which I've shown in the previous slide. So there is a mismatch between your fiducial cosmology and the cosmology that you measure from your survey. And because the mocks are expensive, you cannot recalculate them. And the last point, which is a bit important, is that the mocks suffer from sampling noise. So you have to simulate lots of mock catalogs to have accurate value of the covariance matrix, which brings up your computational cost. And because of this sampling noise, you have to also artificially inflate your parameter constraints. I'll get back to this point. Let me directly first show you the results of our analytic calculation with state-of-the-art mock simulations. And then I'll go into what are the properties of these analytic method and how we overcome some challenges. So let me first show you the comparison of our analytic method with the mocks that were used in the SDSS BOSS parameter estimation. So for example, like these mocks needed around like 6 months for the collaboration to come up with the final version. And one point to emphasize here is that our analytic prediction is not a fit to these mocks. We have calculated everything from the first principle. And you can see we have a very good agreement all the way up to very non-linear scales, the k equal to 0.6. And yeah, again, let me emphasize the computational speed up is immense because you can calculate these covariances using the analytic method in within a minute versus you need months to calculate the mock covariances. So you need around 1 million CPU hours to calculate the mock covariances. And for the analytic method, it is computationally trivial. So I showed the diagonals of the auto covariance matrix in the previous slide. So in this slide, you have like monopole cross monopole, the power spectrum monopole, which is the angle averaged three-dimensional version of the power spectrum. And you have the quadrupole and the hexadecapole. So here I have shown the diagonals. Let me also show you cross covariances where you have monopole cross quadrupole covariance and other similar versions. I've shown the diagonals on the left, which agree pretty well. And I've also shown row of the covariance matrix for these cross covariances. And you can immediately see that there is a large sampling noise in these mock simulations. And on the other hand, our theory calculations do not have any noise. Okay. So my last couple slides were based on comparing the covariance matrices element by element. But then let me show you results for using these covariance matrices in a realistic data analysis. So we carry out the BOSS DR12 data analysis using these mocks, the analytic covariances and the mock covariances. And the data analysis has been done using the pipeline of Misha Ivano with people at IAS. I think Misha is going to talk about this pipeline in this meeting, so you can also attend his talk. And I've shown the two covariances compared in these constraint plots where the gray is the patchy mocks and the blue are the analytic covariances. And you can see there is an excellent agreement between the gray and the blue. So these are the results that we are planning to publish at the end of the month. And this plot uses the entire BOSS data. So let me now go ahead and to show you some aspects of the analytic covariance, let's do a case study of one of the chunk of the BOSS data, the North Galactic Cap high redshift chunk. So you again have three covariances compared in the triangle plot. So let's first look at the gray and the blue. So as I mentioned, for the gray ones, the mocks, they are simulated at a fiducial cosmology, which is different from the output cosmology that we get after the BOSS analysis. So we first thought to compare things apples by apples. So we simulated the mocks, the analytic covariance for the fiducial cosmology. And you can see it agrees pretty well with the patchy mocks. And then we went ahead and did this analysis for the best fit cosmology. And you see that the results are almost identical. So we have checked that the BOSS results are indeed robust with respect to the change in the cosmology of the covariance matrix. And this test becomes possible as a result of the analytic calculation, which is computationally very, has a low cost. So there is one more interesting thing you can notice in this plot, which is that you have small shifts in the parameter constraints. And I'll argue in my next slide that these small shifts are because of noise in the mock catalogs. So in the SDSS BOSS parameter estimation, they use 2048 mock catalogs. And there is a question that is your covariance matrix converged by using these many mocks, or is there still noise in the matrix? So what we did as a test is that we sampled 2048 power spectra from the analytic covariance matrix. And then from these sampled power spectra, we calculated a covariance matrix, which is like a sampled version of the analytic matrix. So here we wanted to gauge the sampling noise in 2048 realizations. And the colored curves in this triangle plot show three versions of the sampled analytic covariance. And you can immediately see that compared to the gray, there are these shifts in these parameter constraints. And I've highlighted one of the 0.3 sigma shift. And the other thing you notice is that in some cases, there is an inflation of error bars, and some other cases, there is a deflation of error bars. And both of the points have been studied well in the literature. You can refer to these two papers that I mentioned. But it's important to note that these 2048 mocks have not converged, and there is still sampling noise in your analysis. And if you have a spurious deflation of your error bars, there might be spurious tension between two types of cosmological constraints. So this is dangerous, and you should simulate more mocks. Okay. Now I've shown the results and the comparison of the analytic method with the mocks. Now let me go into what aspects or what challenges that you have to overcome to do an analytic version of the covariance matrix. So the first challenge is that you have a highly non-trivial survey window. So in your survey, you don't observe the true overdensity. What you observe is delta W of X, which is your true overdensity multiplied by your window function W. And the window function is a three-dimensional object. It has a radial part, which is your survey selection function. You don't observe objects equally at all redshifts. And there is an angular part based on where your telescopes are on Earth. So the part of the sky that you can see. And you can see in the upper and lower panel, there are some dots or some holes in your angular mask. And there are also some regions which have been masked out. So this W is a non-trivial 3D object to handle. And one more important thing is that here I'm showing you the overdensity in configuration space. You can, when you calculate your power spectrum, you have to go to Fourier space where this becomes a convolution. So now let me show you the full expression for the power spectrum covariance. So your power spectrum is a 2-point function, and your covariance is the error bar on it. So it's a 4-point function. So let me show you one of the terms in the covariance. You have a 4-point function where each, there are 4 overdensity terms, and each of the overdensity term is a Fourier term which is convolved with the window function that I've shown you earlier. So if I expand it, it's an 18-dimensional integral and has 4 of your window functions. And so this is a non-trivial integral to calculate. And the solution that we saw worked was that you can separate your clustering and your survey geometry terms. So all of your dependence on cosmology and bias parameters are in the clustering terms, which are the power spectra. And the other part, which is shown in curly brackets, you can compute given the survey random catalog, and you can tabulate it. So you have, if you have to change your covariance matrix for a different cosmology, what you have to do is just recalculate your power spectra and multiply it by these tabulated kernels in the curly brackets. So this procedure has also been discussed. I've shown you two other references where instead of using FFTs of the random catalog, people use the correlation function. And let me discuss the second challenge in the analytic method, which is modeling in the non-linear regime. So this is always a challenge for analytic method on all fronts, because as things go non-linear, it's very difficult to calculate the higher orders of the analytic calculation. And I've shown one explicit example as the power spectra in the quadruple power spectra in the left. So you can see that if you use the linear theory, you don't include non-linearities, you already have a big discrepancy at k equal to 0.2 already. But then what we saw was that for the covariance, we can go to extremely non-linear scales, but we are having almost like perfect agreement with these mock simulations. And so why does an analytic covariance work so well at these high k values or these small scales? So what we realized was that there is this phenomena of short noise, which actually helps your analytic calculation. So let me give a brief overview. If you have your overdensity mode, which is shown in gray, and then if you have a survey with a high number density of galaxies, you can measure a histogram, which is shown in the yellow lines. And you will have a good, these galaxies are a good tracer of the underlying overdensity mode. And you can even measure like small scales in this upper case. But then for realistic survey, what happens is that you have low number densities of galaxies. And that's why if you have overdensity mode shown in gray, and you calculate your histogram for your galaxies, you have noise in small scales. So if I have a mode with which is 10 times smaller than the gray overdensity mode, I will have this mode like dominated by short noise at these scales. So what we saw was that Poisson fluctuations actually dominate the covariance matrix or the power spectrum error bars at small scales. And the good thing about this is that the Poisson fluctuations can be very well modeled analytically, unlike the nonlinear gravitational evolution modes. So let me show you an explicit like calculation of the short noise for these covariance cases that I had mentioned. So I've shown the monopole cross monopole autocovariance and the quadrupole cross quadrupole. And the thing to note here is that you have your short noise shown in these dashed lines, and you have the total shown in the black. And as you can see in both plots, the dashed lines actually dominate over the solid lines starting at k equal to 0.1. And then the domination increases as we go to high k or small scales. So at very small scales, you can see at k equal to 0.5, the short noise is a factor of 10 more than the nonlinear contributions to the covariance. And okay, so for the calculations that I've shown earlier, they were all done for number densities corresponding to the BOSS survey. So let me quickly like compare with upcoming surveys whether this domination of short noise at small scales would hold. So what we saw was that short noise was around more than 10 times larger than the non-linearities at small scales. So here I've shown the power over short noise for BOSS in red. And so for surveys which are say factor of 10 smaller than a factor of 10 of this red line would all be short noise dominated in the nonlinear regime. So these two important upcoming surveys, DESI and Euclid, they would both be dominated by short noise in the nonlinear scales. And this is a very good property of these upcoming surveys, which helps an analytic calculation of the covariance. So let me summarize my talk. I've mentioned that analytic covariance is an excellent alternative to mock simulations, especially for upcoming spectroscopic surveys. So I've shown the two main comparisons with mocks. So these are the state of the art mocks that we have compared with, and we find very good agreement, both in parameter constraints and on the level of elements of the covariance matrix, all the way up to nonlinear scales. Second point is that there is an immense computational speed up of around 4 orders of magnitude, and it helps you to calculate covariance matrices at different cosmologies, especially the best fit output cosmology. And the last point, which is very important, is that there are no sampling noise effects in your analytic covariance. So there are no parameter shifts, and there are no inflation or deflation of parameter error bars. And these two effects are important because we are going to do these new upcoming high precision galaxy surveys, and we don't want shifts of 0.3 sigma or inflation or deflation of parameter error bars by 20% because of sampling noise. So this method would work very well for upcoming surveys. Let me just briefly mention that these analytic techniques are crucial for calculating the error bars on the bispectrum, which are the triangles that you can observe in the sky. And for the bispectrum covariance, the mock simulations are computationally prohibitive because you are, for a robust analysis, you would calculate 2000 triangles, and to have error bars on these 2000 triangles, you would need orders of tens of thousands of mocks, which is extremely hard. And the analytic theory is a good alternative. So thank you.